Adriana shifted beneath him, threading her fingers through his hair as he continued his descent. The hallway floor was cold and unforgiving, but neither of them cared. The space between them had disappeared completely, and the heat radiating between their bodies was more than enough to make up for it. "God, I need you so much," Rick murmured against her skin, his voice rough and unfiltered. Adriana shivered at his words, her grip tightening slightly in his hair. "Then prove it." There was no teasing in her tone this time, no playful challenge, no lingering smirk. Just raw, unspoken need. And Rick answered it the only way he knew how. Skipping past the usual teasing, he went straight to the part that always left her breathless. He moved lower, shifting his weight as he gripped her thighs, spreading them apart with a confidence that left no room for hesitation. Her sharp inhale was all the encouragement he needed. Everything else faded, the stress of the week, the exhaustion weighing on his shoulders, the cold, hard floor beneath them. None of it mattered. The only thing that existed in that moment was her warmth, her scent, the way her body responded to his every touch. Rick wasn't just giving in to desire, he was making up for lost time. He was reminding her, reminding himself, that no matter how chaotic life got, no matter how many long nights or stressful weeks separated them, they would always find their way back to this. To each other. Adriana gasped as his mouth met her head falling back against the wall as her fingers dug into his scalp. The sound was music to his ears, and it fueled him like nothing else. Rick had spent all week pouring every ounce of energy into his job, into meetings and deadlines and problem solving. But this was where he wanted to pour himself now. Into her. Into the way she trembled beneath him. Into the way she whispered his name, half sigh, half moan. Adriana was always stunning, always effortlessly beautiful, but like this, she was intoxicating. He wasn't sure how much time passed, minutes, maybe longer, but the way she bucked beneath him, the way her grip in his hair turned desperate, told him everything he needed to know. "Rick!" Her voice broke, and the sound alone nearly undid him. He held on, savoring every second as he pushed her over the edge, drinking in the way her body tensed, then melted in his arms. When she finally slumped back against the wall, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths, Rick pressed one last kiss against her inner thigh before looking up at her. Her eyes were hazy, lips parted, skin flushed in a way that made him want to start all over again. But for now, he just wanted to take her in, to memorize her like this, undone and perfect. A slow, satisfied smile spread across her face as she met his gaze. "I should stress you out more often." Rick huffed out a laugh, pressing his forehead to her knee as he tried to catch his own breath. "You're going to kill me, woman." Adriana ran her fingers through his hair, her touch softer now, more languid. "Nah, I'll just make sure you never forget how good it feels to come home." His grip on her thighs tightened slightly, his pulse still pounding in his ears. He was definitely not forgetting anytime soon. And as he slowly rose to meet her, capturing her lips in another kiss, he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't done showing her just how much he needed her. Not even close. Her eyes were half-lidded, her skin flushed, her lips parted just slightly as she tried to catch her breath. She was the picture of utter satisfaction, and he wasn't even close to being done with her. "You good?" he asked, his voice laced with amusement. Adriana let out a breathy laugh, shaking her head. "You always ask that, like you don't already know." Rick grinned, kissing his way back up her body until they were face to face again. "Just making sure." She hummed, her fingers sliding down his chest, tracing the lines of his muscles. Good thing the night's not over then." Rick groaned, resting his forehead against hers. "Jesus, woman. Are you trying to kill me?" Adriana smirked, pressing a slow, lazy kiss to his lips. "No, babe. I'm trying to bring you back to life." And just like that, Rick knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that she already had. Keeping his lips active, Rick trailed soft, lingering kisses down Adriana's neck, his touch tender yet filled with longing. His hands roamed over her body, savoring the familiar curves he had missed during his long, exhausting week. He squeezed her waist gently, his fingertips tracing over her smooth skin before continuing his path downward. Adriana let out a breathy sigh, arching slightly in response to his touch. She ran her fingers through his hair, encouraging him as he pressed kisses along her collarbone, then down over her chest. Rick took his time, savoring the warmth of her body, relishing the closeness that had been missing between them. "You're incredible," he murmured, his voice husky with admiration. "I don't say that enough." A knowing smile crossed Adriana's lips. "You don't have to say it. Just show me." Rick exhaled a quiet laugh, his hands tightening around her hips as he pulled her closer. "Oh, I intend to." And with that, he carried her from the hallway, eager to prove, over and over again, just how much she meant to him. Accepting her invitation, Rick continued his tender exploration, planting a trail of kisses down her stomach. He could feel the tension in her body, the anticipation woven between them like an invisible thread pulling them closer. Every sigh, every shiver beneath his touch deepened the connection they shared. Adriana's breath hitched as his hands glided down her hips, his touch both familiar and electric. She closed her eyes, letting herself sink into the moment, the weight of the week lifting off them both. This wasn't just about passion, it was about reconnection, about finding each other again after days spent apart in mind and body. Rick looked up at her, drinking in the sight of his wife lost in the moment. "You're everything to me, Adriana," he whispered. "I've missed you." She cupped his face, brushing her thumb over his cheek. "Then don't hold back." His pulse pounded at her words, at the pure trust in her gaze. He didn't need any more encouragement. With a deep, smoldering gaze, Rick leaned in, eager to make up for lost time, eager to remind her just how much she meant to him. He moved with purpose, his hands and lips tracing over her with devotion, unraveling her in ways only he knew how. Adriana's soft moans filled the space between them, her body responding to his every touch, every lingering kiss. The world outside faded away, leaving only the two of them in the soft glow of their home, wrapped in the warmth of each other's love. A powerful release surged through him, rolling over his body like a crashing tide. His muscles tensed, his breath hitched, and his grip on her tightened as pleasure overtook him completely. He felt the heat of their union, the merging of his release with hers, a physical testament to their shared hunger, their connection, their love. As the waves of pleasure slowly ebbed, Rick leaned forward, capturing Adriana's lips in a deep, lingering kiss. It was a silent expression of gratitude, of devotion, of satisfaction beyond words. Their bodies finally parted, leaving them breathless and spent, but utterly content. They sank to the floor, backs resting against the wall, their skins still warm, their heartbeats gradually slowing in unison. The tension, the stress of the week, the weight of the world outside, it all melted away in that moment. What remained was the simple, undeniable joy of being together. Rick let out a satisfied sigh, flashing a lazy grin as he gazed at his wife. "What a way to end a long week." "Amen to that," Adriana murmured, still catching her breath, a playful smirk tugging at her lips. He chuckled, running a hand over his face before letting it rest on her thigh. "Work sucks, but when you've got someone you love to come home to, someone who doesn't mind being naked as soon as the door opens." "Don't say it's worth it," she cut in, nudging him with her shoulder. "Work shouldn't be the only reason you come home to make love to your wife." He pulled her closer, brushing a tender kiss against her temple. "It's not," he assured her, his voice soft yet firm. "I was going to say, it reminds you that no matter how hectic life gets, the simplest, sexiest basics can still mean everything." Adriana hummed in approval, resting her head against his shoulder. "Now that I'll accept." A comfortable silence settled between them, their bodies entwined in a way that felt effortless, like they belonged nowhere else but here, like this. They had battled through the chaos of the week, fought off exhaustion and distance, and now they had found each other again. And no matter what the next week threw their way, they had this, each other, their love, and the quiet, passionate moments that made everything worthwhile.